Hey, Larry here, Acts 29 today, coming to you from Sunny World headquarters in Chiang Mai, Thailand. I'd like to welcome all the viewers in Thailand and around the world. So last time I left you, we had just gotten to China, and we were beginning to be into the orientation of how to take these Bibles and tracts up into China, because we had to cross the border, and at the border there was a scanner, and usually there was just one guy at the scanner. So what they would do is they'd wait for people to get there, and then they would try to actually just go around the scanner itself and hope that this guy didn't really notice what was going on. And 99% of the time they got through. So we had these vests and we had these things we wore in our bodies that were stuffed with tracts, so I could carry maybe 1,000 tracts and then some Bibles in a bag and whatnot. So we the next day we loaded up and we got on a train, subway kind of train deal, and went up to the Shenzhen border. And we got to the border, and then it was time to go through. So we got there, and there were quite a few people there, and they were all jammed up at the scanning machine. And so we just kind of walked up, like we put something on the scanner, and then we just kind of walked around the people, and then walked back over like we took our bag back. And the guy was so busy with looking at all this stuff, he never even noticed it. And so I got through and walked out the other side, and I was so excited. When I got out the other side, there was a guard a guard out there, and I was so excited I almost hugged him because I got through. And this is the picture of the Bibles I got through, and then I had a lot of stuff on my body, but that was my first successful trip through the border. And then we got on a bus, and we would go up to a safe house, and then in the safe house we would unload everything and put it in lockers and stuff. We'd unload all the Bibles and the tracts and everything that we had at the safe house, and then from there other teams would pick it up, and they would take the tracts and everything on up into China to distribute. And so that's where these other teams would pick this stuff up, and then they would go distribute it on up into other cities. So that was kind of the routine that we did for we would try to do that every day, to take these tracts and stuff and get them up into the safe house. So that was the routine. On another trip I did to China, I met with some underground church people at an apartment, and actually one of those guys there was in the Communist Party, but he was a believer. And so I met with these these people on several occasions, and we had some great teaching times there. So that was our deal at the scanner that we went by every day. And then China was going to take back Hong Kong, and this was in June '97. Now, at the same time, you never know until you go. So, also on this trip, I met a pastor and several people from a ministry in Mackay, Australia. And we got to be very good friends on this trip. And so he invited me up to speak at a missions conference in Mackay in Australia at a later date, which I did. And then also we all came back to China, and we went on up into mainland China and took the bread and crumbs from these places that we took the first time, and we went on a real adventure of distributing those. So you never know until you go, right? So what I believe God is really looking for, he's not looking for people that are able, he's looking for people that are available. Because he can take the people that are who are available and make them able, but he cannot make the people who are able available. Which brings me to this story of a man that the Holy Spirit asked to go to Europe the next day. Holy Spirit just told a guy in America to go to Europe the next day. He didn't know where to go. He didn't know what to do. The Holy Spirit just said, I need you to go to Europe tomorrow. So the next day, the man bought a ticket, and while he was on the plane to Europe, he asked the Holy Spirit, why such short notice for this trip to Europe? And the Holy Spirit said, because the other person I asked to go said no. You see, God will find someone to do what needs to be done if no one else will. So once again, the secret to the opportunity of a lifetime is taking action during the lifetime of the opportunity. I'm going to say that over and over and over until you get it. The secret of the opportunity of a lifetime is taking action during the lifetime of the opportunity. Because opportunities have lifetimes and they don't last forever. I had a good friend that I needed some people to go to Thailand with me to help build an orphanage. And this guy was a bricklayer and knew how to do everything that needed to be done. And actually, his trip was already paid for. But he didn't know that. And I didn't tell him because I wanted to get a commitment from him, to go, even though maybe he didn't know how he was going to afford to go. I just wanted a commitment. And so I asked him if he'd go, and he said, well, I'll pray about it and this and that. And then he finally got his passport, and then he, but he never would say, yeah, I want to go, I'll go. I don't know how I'm going to pay for it or whatever, but yeah, I'm going. But he never got to that place. And so I never told him that the trip was free, and he never ended up going on the trip. I told him years later that the trip was free. And, he felt bad, that he hadn't committed and stuff. But, there again, make a commitment by faith for what God, is wanting you to do. And this isn't putting him down in any way. And maybe he wasn't supposed to go on the trip. I don't know. But it's just an example that I have that I share from time to time. So let me give you another faith lesson. We were in Thailand one time and we were getting ready to leave, and we had to go to this second level for departures. So we got to the escalator, and guess what? It wasn't moving. And people were kind of standing there looking at it. And, I was thinking, well, we got to go up here to the next level to catch our plane. So whether this thing's working or not, we got to go, even if we have to just walk up it. So when I put my foot out to step on the first step of the escalator, but before my foot hit the pad, it was moving, started moving automatically, because there was a beam of light coming through, and the escalator was shut off when nobody was using it to save power. But when my foot swung through the light beam, it tripped it, and it started working. And I thought, wow, what an amazing example of faith. A lot of people, they stand around looking at something and they're waiting and waiting because it doesn't seem to be working. But it's when you take the step of faith that activates the power for it to start to work. So nothing's going to work while we're just standing there looking at it. We need to activate that power so it begins to produce. And as soon as I took that step of faith, it was moving before I got there. So actually what I was doing was stepping into the power of another, because I didn't exert any power to get to that second floor level. You got it? I didn't exert any power. The power was there. I just rode on the power to the second level to departure. And I'll go into that a lot more in detail in a later video. But anyway, that was just an amazing faith lesson for me when we were leaving Thailand that time. So the power isn't released until you take the first step. Well, the first trip to Hong Kong and China was a real step of faith for us into the unknown, and a great learning experience, and also made connections. Again, I was thrilled to be out of truck, living life as God had planned for me to live from before the foundations of the world. So before somebody tells you praying in tongues doesn't do any good, just keep listening to my story. So the next thing that happened now, I'm going to tell you about in the next video, was beyond amazing. Because people ask me all the time, well, how do you do this? How do you travel around the world and do all this? And I always tell them the same thing, well, God. And then they go, well, yeah, we know God, but how? Give us some details. How does it happen? In reality, in real life, how does it happen that you come to this place where you can do this? And so I'm going to share with you the details and exactly how one great thing happened provision-wise that unlocked the world to us for this ministry that God called us to. So I'll see you on the next video.